Thanks everyone for joining us today for our webinar where we'll be talking about iboss Zero Trust SD-WAN and how it delivers secure, cost-effective Zero Trust connectivity. My name's James Day and I'm the vendor sales specialist for iboss at Infinigate. Infinigate is a distributor, helps our partners keep their customers secure in a digital world. We work with partners to bring the best cybersecurity, cloud and networking solutions, plus the know-how to make them work seamlessly. We've been partnered with iboss for the last 5 years and sole distributor for the last 9 months. We've seen how valuable their platform is to customers, which is evidenced by that unusually high win rate over the competition and the number of customers that renew consistently year after year. Before we dive in, there is a couple of housekeeping notes. Today's session will last between 45 minutes and 60 minutes. We will have time for some Q&A at the end, so do drop your questions in the questions window to the right of the screen at any point, which will be picked up at the end of Simon's session. And the webinar is recorded, so you'll receive the replay link afterwards. Now to get started, please join me in welcoming our speaker, Simon Apparillo, Senior VP of Sales for EMEA and APJ. Simon, over to you.
Thank you, James. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for your time on this rainy, at least where I am, Wednesday morning. I won't keep you too long, but this morning we'd like to talk about the SD-WAN feature of the iboss Zero Trust SASE platform, something that we introduced about a year ago. Talk about some of the pain points around SD-WAN that customers are facing today, what our solution looks like to address those pain points, how it works, how we implement it, some of the use cases, and right at the end I'm just going to give you a sneak preview into our next release as well, because there's some exciting things coming along in the next release. So let's jump straight in. A quick reminder about us. I think you're our partners, so you know what we do and where we sit and what our proposition is. But this is our goal really. The combining networking and security, reducing costs, reducing the number of vendors, which in turn can reduce complexity for our customers, and really giving our customers a platform that can take them on that SASE journey, help them implement zero trust architectures and principles, and again, all of these things in a single platform, which is what the iboss Zero Trust platform is, can help reduce risk and reduce cost. So that's our goal. This is our platform. I think you know it already, so I'll move on. So SD-WAN, why have we brought SD-WAN into the platform? Quite a few reasons, but the main reason is that customers have been struggling, I think, with separation of connectivity and security, and I think the way we've been dealing with it in the past is separately, right? And we still have separation between networking teams and cybersecurity teams, but single vendor SASE solutions can bring together connectivity and security, and again, in turn, by reducing the complexity and bringing connectivity and security together, we can reduce a lot of risk at the same time. Some of the problems that we see out there today, I think MPLS is still prevalent. We still see things like lease lines, MPLS, and they are expensive. So that's always been the main driver, I think, for customers and organizations looking to move to SD-WAN and using broadband and public internet connectivity to connect sites together, to connect clouds together, to connect data centers together. It's still the main driver. And the way we've been achieving that is really separate from security. So again, we have networking solutions to create our connectivity, and then the security has really been an overlay, or maybe even the security's come along after as a bit of an afterthought. Of course, this breeds complexity. We also see, bad user experience depending on if they're working remotely, if they're working in the coffee shop or the airport, or if they're on site. And when it comes to the security aspect, what we also see is different security postures depending on where users are. Depending if they're in the headquarters, they may have the strongest security posture, but maybe when they go remote or they go to a branch site, the security posture can be weakened or different, or a different user experience. And these things all matter because, you know, organizations are under increased compliance, regulations. A lot of organizations are, you know, are doing digital transformation, infrastructure transformation. So addressing these problems now is very topical. The iboss solution is that, you probably already know, the iboss platform, you know, is 100% built by iboss. So we have not gone through acquisition stages. This isn't a bunch of point solutions to create a SASE solution. It's a very platform built from the ground up by the iboss team. And now we've also integrated our SD-WAN stack into this. So that's important because when we talk about things like reducing complexity and giving a good end user experience with the same security posture, that's important because, you know, when you go for acquisitions and you integrate lots of different products under an administrative umbrella, you're not really addressing those problems. So we built in SD-WAN for connectivity into our solution. It's all the things that you'd expect. So our solution can use standard broadband and internet connections, and over the public internet we can create, or over the iboss backbone, we can create secure tunnels to connect branch offices, clouds, or but using cheaper transport than things like leased lines and MPLS. And again, it's built into our platform. So for our customers, when they're configuring, when they're creating security postures, everything's in one place and the security is embedded into the connectivity. Again, you know, why now? Well, again, it helps organizations reduce complexity. It address things like different security postures, and it just takes the strain off managing multiple systems and brings together networking and security into one. So let's just drill a little bit down into the problem, how we see it today. You know, there's been an evolution that's been going on for several years. Hybrid working. I think every organisation now has got some kind of cloud adoption, digital transformation, and you know, the adoption of SaaS applications is only increasing. But what this means is, as we've been adding things on, you know, this is historical, right? It used to happen when everything was on premise. We used to open more offices, open more data centers, add more servers, and often security is added on afterwards. And that's kind of happened as well with cloud adoption. So many organizations use multiple clouds. They use AWS, and there's some use GCP as well. Organizations can still have data centers. They can still have computer rooms in the corporate HQ. But certainly connecting these things together has changed. Remote users, of course, are outside of our physical perimeter. And what this has culminated in is a much bigger threat surface. So if we start using a SaaS application, that's another threat. How do we secure that? How do we lock it down? How do we ensure that only authorized users are accessing that SaaS application? Same with private cloud. Although AWS and Azure, you know, is a public cloud that's publicly accessible, many organizations are using it as a private cloud with private infrastructure, you know, for different reasons. So again, we want to ensure that only authorized users are getting into that cloud. And we're using different ways to secure public internet, private cloud, SaaS applications, and that can bring again that complexity and different security postures depending where users are, where they're located, whether they're remote in a branch office HQ to access these resources. So the threat surface has definitely increased, and the complexity around securing our resources in all these different locations has brought a lot of new challenges. So what are we doing differently? So so when we looked at this aspect, what we were finding was, and I won't pick on any particular vendor, but I think it's fairly broad, is that we're finding that vendors were taking a different approach to connectivity and security. And what we're seeing is, if I called it SD-WAN version 1, is that SD-WAN was very much 100% focused on connectivity, and the security was very much an overlay. And we also found that a lot of the security layers could only happen in the cloud. So what happened was, organizations were rolling out SD-WAN, but then if they wanted to secure any of that traffic, because it was going to public services like AWS or SaaS applications, then they had to kind of trombone that traffic through a cloud service. So if they wanted to do malware defense, CASB, do anything around DLP, it has to go up to the cloud. It needs to be decrypted, which takes a fair amount of compute power, inspect the traffic, apply those rules, and then either come back down to the site or egress through that other vendor's cloud point of presence. And that introduces not only complexity, it also diminishes user experience, because users can get different latency levels depending on what they're accessing. And of course, the big one is it drives up costs, because we see a lot of vendors doing things like surcharging depending on how much bandwidth you may use. So it's very dependent on the organization's rules that they set up. If they want to do DLP on everything, if they want to inspect all traffic, then that means everything's got to go up to the cloud service, increases the amount of traffic that goes through that vendor service. So we've taken a different approach. Again, if we look down the bottom of this slide, and we already had a containerized architecture, which you'll be familiar with, and that containerized architecture already had all of the SSE security layers built into it: firewall, DLP, CASB, malware defense, technologies like browser isolation, and the ability to control and inspect Gen AI. So that's already built in, and what that allows us to do is now add on top of that into these containers connectivity, so that we can connect one site to another site, one resource to another resource, one cloud to another cloud. And what it allows us to do is be cloud independent, always give a consistent security posture, because all users come through a customer's tenant with their own containers within that. And as the traffic traverses through the security layers, we're going to do the full inspection before that traffic traverses to another site or public internet or a SaaS application. And what that means is we've reduced complexity. We give users a consistent security posture. We can visibility, we can log everything, and in that effect, we reduce not only cost but also complexity and in turn risk. So everything's built in. It's easier to administrate. Again, it's a very fluid administration console. So networking teams and security teams log into the same place. They configure the connectivity, they configure the security policies all in one place, and traffic traverses through one cloud, one set of security policies. So it's quite different. Again, comparing the top and the bottom here, we see with other vendors, basic protection only. Maybe they're using firewalls or just, sort of dumb SD-WAN routers. And if they want to do any kind of inspection, especially if it's going to public internet, it has to go up to the cloud. We can do everything in our cloud or on premise before it egresses to the public internet. So there's a few other use cases that we see, and I'll put all these together at the end. But different customers will have different preferences. Some customers may be globally deployed, they may be very distributed. Verticals like retail, for example, they could have global sites, global stores, and they may have different approaches. We see some customers just prefer to do everything through the cloud, so that's completely possible. There's no need for hardware. You can connect two sites together via the iboss backbone, just using things like tunnels. Or you can use hardware, which was on the previous diagram. The other thing that we see and we've implemented is customers that use multiple cloud providers. You can use the iboss cloud as glue, effectively, to glue together two different cloud providers. In this example, we've got Azure and AWS, but everything flows through the iboss cloud. We provide the connectivity, but also the security. So everything will be audited between these cloud providers. We'll provide the routing, the connectivity, but also the visibility as well. So there's a few different use cases that we see out. Hybrid is completely supported. Again, some customers may prefer to use pure cloud in some regions, and in some regions it may be challenging, and they may need to put hardware down at those sites, those stores, or those branch offices. So pulling this all together with the other capabilities, the SSE capabilities in the iboss platform, means that we can have a very fluid workflow when it comes to any user in any location. The headquarters, the branch office, the coffee shop, the airport, in that all traffic will flow through the iboss cloud, through the customer's tenant, and we will get full visibility. We'll apply the same consistent security policies and security layers to all traffic, and provide the transport, the connectivity to route traffic to the right location. So from an end user's perspective, they really don't need to know where a resource is connected. If it's something like Salesforce or Workday or G Suite, that's public SaaS. Maybe if they're going to a private application in the organization's data center, maybe it's the application, maybe it's an application that just can't be moved to public cloud, or the organization doesn't want to, then they're going to use our ZTNA. But whatever method we use to connect a user to a resource, it's transparent to the end user. They don't know. All traffic will go through the nearest point of presence, or if they're in an office, it will go through that SD-WAN container, and that's where the traffic handling inspection happens, and then that's where the routing happens. So we'll connect that user to the right resource based on the configuration and the policies that the administrator set. Completely transparent to the user. Wherever location they move, if they move from home to the office, they're always going to get the same security posture. and they always get the same level of protection. The organization gets the same visibility and control on what that user can access, how they're identified, and how we audit and log what they're doing when they access resources. So again, very fluid. We're bringing everything together, consistent security postures, connectivity to any resource in any location. So one of the questions that we always get asked, of course, is, well, how easy is this to achieve, right? I think it's where many organizations want to be. They want to reduce complexity. They want to have a single source of truth, single place to manage their security policies. And especially for bigger organizations that are distributed, they want to do this in a, they want to roll it out quickly. They want to be able to manage it easily. And of course, all that go through transformation, they need that flexibility as well. Not to mention things like acquisitions and mergers, bringing other sites and organizations into the fold can often be very challenging. So when it comes to things like cloud, we're used to that. We're used to connecting users to cloud resources. Hybrid, I think SD-WAN has been a little bit different. We see different types of hardware. We see SD-WAN controllers. We see edge routers. We see firewalls with SD-WAN add-ons. But what that can mean is a very disjointed approach where you're managing different devices and connectivity methods around the organization, around the sites. So cloud is easy. It's things like creating tunnels. We also have things like virtual machines that can go in AWS or in customer sites that will create the tunnels if the customer doesn't want to use firewalls or they're not available. When it comes to hardware, and I'll run through the different types of hardware that we have for SD-WAN, it's really simple. So it's really a 6-step process. We can ship the appliance to site directly. It can be pre-configured. It needs power and connectivity onto the network, of course. It can go inside the network or in a DMZ, for example. Normally, the customer will already have their container set up. They already have a cloud tenant, and that will have containers in the regions that customer operates in. UK, USA, Germany. We've got over 50 points of presence globally, probably over 60 now, actually. So that will already be set. And then it's a matter of building tunnels. And when we talk about building tunnels, there's different ways. They can be built manually. So, for example, if you were connecting to Azure via a tunnel, let's say from a firewall, maybe you would build that tunnel manually. But if you were using iboss hardware, for example, or tunnels already exist, you just use our GUI for that. You just use our UI, and you just say, for connect London to New York, and we'll actually build the tunnels automatically. Everything's automated. No phase 1 or phase 2 to set up and understand. We'll just build the tunnels automatically, and London will be connected to New York within seconds. Once we've done that step, it's a matter of creating policies. The policies really enforce what type of inspection and controls. Policies also things like say what type of authentication level the user needs, what groups they need to be in, conditional aspects, conditional controls around who can access what. Everything's audited, so all traffic is tracked and audited and logged for monitoring purposes. Again, if it's public internet traffic, we can do additional things like monitor Gen AI conversations between the end user and the Gen AI engine. We check everything for command and controls, all downloads for any sign of malware, CASB controls for granular control. Again, everything happens within the container, and the policies really apply who can do what and when. And then optimized routing. Many organizations will all have different connectivity methods. They may still have a combination of and broadband type access. Maybe they're even using things like LTE and 5G. But these are the configuration options. So it's really easy. If I step back to step one, installing the appliance, it literally takes seconds. It just needs power, just needs connectivity. There's a little wizard that will run you through joining the appliance to your container, to the customer's container. Once that's joined, everything will then be synchronized from the iboss cloud. All the policies, all of the routes to all of the other sites, everything will be synchronized automatically. And once that appliance is joined to the iboss cloud, that's it. You don't need to use that small local GUI anymore. All administration happens in the cloud alongside everything else that we do. So when it comes to customers that want to do a hybrid approach, we have different sizing for hardware. We have an SE170, and it's really aimed at small to medium branch offices. Has 500 megabit throughput, 2 WAN ports for redundancy. All of these boxes also support LAN side redundancy with HA ability, and it has not rack. Well, you can rack mount it, but it's not meant to be rack mounted. It's a kind of desktop type box, solid state, no moving parts, low cost, and yeah, really meant to connect branch offices together alongside hub sites. The bigger model, this is a model that we've supplied for many years for those customers that prefer hybrid, is a 14800, 1 gig throughput, supports up to 4 WAN side ports, again for bundling together different providers for redundancy or optimized traffic routing. And then we have something called a no blade chassis, really for data centers, aggregators, same type of hardware we use in our own POPs as well. For those customers that have sites that they are happy with not using hardware and they just want to use software options, we have different connectivity methods. We're on the AWS Marketplace, so you can download something there. OVF files and Docker files downloads and these options basically create tunnels from either a cloud or a site into the iboss cloud for connectivity. The software options means that you are going to use the iboss backbone to connect 2 sites together. If you deploy hardware, you can go directly site to site. So if you put an SE170 in London branch office and you put a 14800 in New York hub site, those tunnels will be built directly site to site. So different options, all cloud, all on-prem or hybrid. Okay, we'll take some questions at the end. Before we wrap up, I just wanted to our next version 10.4 will be released this month. Some exciting new features being released in this update, things that we've been working on for some time. We're expanding our CASB. We're going to be using AI to automatically catalog and get visibility of things like zero-day apps or any app that customers are using. We've worked alongside Microsoft to extend Purview into our platform. We've reworked our to support DLP teams that work independently. And then there's a new feature using our browser isolation to protect organizations from embedded links in email. There's a bunch of other stuff as well. They're the big hitters. We are extending our AI risk module to support other Gen AI engines. To date, we've supported ChatGPT, but we'll be extending to Copilot, Gemini. There's a few others, I think Grok, Claude, and a few others. So we'll run another one of these webinars shortly, where we'll dive into 10.4 in more depth. But just wanted to give you a quick view of that because it will be released in the next few weeks. Okay. So again, thanks for your time. Thanks for your attention. If you have any questions, throw them up in the chat box now, and I'll do my best to address those.
Brilliant. Thank you, Simon. I can see that we've got a couple of questions already. So the first one, does iboss SD-WAN work alongside all the other iboss features such as SWG and ZTNA?
It does, absolutely. Everything's completely embedded, and you know I think that's the real power of embedding the SD-WAN into our SASE platform. All of those SSE features are kind of built into the connectivity. They're built into the wire. So whether traffic's going to another site or whether it's egressing locally onto the public internet, all of those features are available.
Brilliant, that's great. Another question here, can you share some examples of where iboss is able to consolidate point products into iboss by adopting SD-WAN?
Yeah, and it's really, a great, it's really just collapsing networking and connectivity. I think many organizations are using separate solutions and they're overlaying security on top of the connectivity. So a good example might be where you're using maybe firewalls or edge routers to connect two sites together. But then if anyone is going out to the public internet, they'll go through or they'll go through a cloud service where things like decryption's happening and CASB controls are being applied. This is where we'll consolidate. You can have the iboss platform, whether the traffic's going through one of our points of presence or whether you deployed hardware, everything will happen in the same place. All of the security inspection, all of the decryption, and then we'll connect that user to the resource.
Perfect, that's great. Thank you, Simon. And does iboss require any third-party hardware for the SD-WAN solution, or can the customer just use the iboss hardware on its own?
Yeah, we supply our own hardware. So the hardware that I had on the previous slide is matched basically, so that the BIOS is matched to our iboss cloud for performance. But most importantly, all of those hardware elements that I showed, they are containers. So we have the security stack built into the hardware. So the CASB, the DLP, the malware defense, everything's actually embedded into that hardware. So alongside the SD-WAN connectivity and the public internet connectivity, you've also got the security built into that hardware. So as traffic passes through the hardware, you've got full inspection, full feature set. But yeah, you don't need anything third party. We ship you a box. You've got a full iboss cloud in a box, in effect.
Amazing, that's great. One last question, Simon. So if a customer has limited resource, how long does the deployment take? Is there a lot of configurations that need to take place?
There really isn't. No, there really isn't. I mean, we offer implementation services to help our customers, but certainly when it comes to the hardware, I think it's a 3 or 4 step wizard. Once you've got power, into it with a web browser, you give it a key, and that connects that piece of hardware to your tenant, to your cloud tenant, and from there everything's managed in the cloud. So I've never done a race, but I would say conservatively that it can be set up in under 10 minutes.
We have had just another question just come in now. Can the iboss boxes be deployed in a resilient topography?
Yeah, I just lost the end of that question, James. Could you just repeat that for me?
No problem, Simon. So yeah, question come in: can the iboss boxes be deployed in a resilient topography?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So on the public side, on the WAN side, there are 2 ports available on the small box, 4 on the bigger box for resilience with multiple providers. On the LAN side, we support IPs, so you can deploy two of those boxes in a kind of active passive mode, or you can use active as well for hardware resiliency and HA failover.
Perfect. That's great, Simon. I think that's all the questions that have come through. So just thank you again, Simon, for your time and sharing us that insight into iboss's new SD-WAN features. It's been really insightful.
Very welcome. Thanks everyone for attending.